Davos vowed to demolish Islamic State power centers amid fresh hopes for Syria peace talks. The Palestinian Authority seeks UN resolution declaring Israel's presence in the West Bank illegal. Asian stocks opened higher after turmoil on financial markets saw European and U.S. indexes tumble following another oil price fall. Good morning and thanks for joining us at I-24 News. I'm Benjamin Chong-Alfalas. Western leaders vowed to destroy the power centers of the Islamic State while Russia announced crucial Syrian peace talks would begin within days. Following a meeting with key allies in Paris, U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter said he would crush what he called the IS cancer. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, meanwhile, said Syria peace talks would start soon. Our correspondent Tamara Zeev has more.
As Western leaders determined to ramp up the fight against Islamic State on Wednesday, Russia announced that critical Syrian peace talks would begin within days.
The political process will begin, we hope, at the soonest, during January. Various dates are being called, but the final decision will be taken by the General Secretary of the UN on the advice and recommendation of his special envoy, Staffan de Mistura. He is currently actively contacting all the Syrian sides, the Syrian government and various opposition groups inside Syria as well as outside. And the Security Council of the UN has tasked him with putting forward an invitation to the Syrian participants for such talks.
His comments came after he met US Secretary of State John Kerry in Zurich, while from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Iran's foreign minister also said Tehran would throw its weight behind a political solution.
A four-point plan: ceasefire, national unity government, constitutional reform, elections based on the new constitution. I believe that's the basic framework that, as Secretary Kerry says, lies at the foundations of the new Security Council resolution.
Russia and Iran are accused of propping up their ally, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, and Western powers say Moscow is indiscriminately bombing Syrian opposition forces fighting IS. This issue was addressed by U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter at a meeting in Paris with his French, Australian, British, Dutch, German and Italian counterparts, where he laid out core goals in the fight against IS.
We don't have the basis for broader cooperation because the Russians are on the wrong track strategically and also in some cases tactically, as was noted.
The United States called for defense ministers from all 26 nations participating in the coalition against Islamic State, as well as Iraq, to gather in Brussels in 3 weeks' time. France and the US, which have stepped up airstrikes in the Middle East after the Paris attacks on November 13th, are striving to convince their partners to accelerate the rhythm after a series of setbacks inflicted to the Islamic State on the ground, particularly in Ramadi and Sinjar.
Well, military operations have been carried out continuously at Russia's airbase since Russian forces arrived last September in the Syrian city of Latakia. According to Russia's defense ministry spokesman for the Russian Air Force has conducted 173 flight missions over the past 5 days, striking a total of 637 infrastructure targets belonging to the militants. Since Russian airstrikes commenced in the end of September last year, around 6,000 flying missions have been carried out at the airbase.
By convention, airdrops are usually carried out at night with the lights turned off since they are dangerous operations. Militants would keep shooting at aircraft flying in the sky above the city. In order to drop materials to designated places accurately, the flying height shouldn't be higher than 3,000 meters during airdrop operations. These are very dangerous movements. So far, all materials have been dropped to the designated places.
Well, the Palestinian Authority seeks to advance a resolution in the UN Security Council that will condemn Israel's presence in the West Bank, declaring Jewish communities there illegal under international law and an obstacle to peace. Senior Palestinian and Israeli officials say that the PA has been in contact with France, Spain, and Egypt, all members of the Security Council, to get them to draw up such a resolution and support it. Israel fears that French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius will want to advance a PA-related resolution as one of the last things he does before leaving his post in a few weeks. We were joined earlier by our correspondent Mohammed Al-Qassem regarding the latest Palestinian Authority campaign.
The Palestinians feel now that there are some sympathetic feelings coming from the European Union. We've seen in the last week or so that the Palestinian Union tried to put some restrictions on products coming out of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, and we've also heard the comments of the Swedish foreign minister that upset the Israeli government, especially Prime Minister Netanyahu. So the Palestinian Authority now is doing a huge push trying to capitalize on those statements and decisions in Europe, and they're focusing their energy on France and Spain in hope that they can get a resolution from the Security Council declaring a Palestinian state. The Palestinian Authority hasn't been shy about saying that they want to fight Israel in the internationally, and they want to focus in the European Union. They've lost faith with the Americans, and they've called the Americans publicly that they are dishonest in brokering a deal with the Israeli and trying to push forward the peace process. And now the Palestinian Authority and its foreign ministry at the helm, as we know, at the helm, its foreign minister Riyad al-Maliki, focusing their efforts on Europe.
Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting U.S. Vice President Joe Biden and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry in Davos today. The leaders will discuss strained U.S.-Israeli relations following the harsh comments of U.S. Ambassador Dan Shapiro a few days ago. We were joined earlier on the line by Moshe Arendt, former Israeli Minister of Defense and Minister of Foreign Affairs, with a comment regarding U.S.-Israeli relations in the context of the Palestinian Authority's latest attempt to force a resolution.
I have no idea what the position of the United States is. Maybe the United States hasn't even determined what its position is going to be. The move has not yet come up in the United Nations or in the Security Council. The United Nations is basically a political organization in that in it are represented countries, each looking out for its own interests, or sometimes in coalition of a number of countries getting together, like those who are trying to bash Israel from time to time. That kind of a forum, to the best of my knowledge, is not a forum that can take judicial decisions and decide what is legal and what is not legal. That's not something for the United Nations to do, and not for the Security Council to do.
Asian stocks opened higher on Thursday after falling oil prices weighed on European and U.S. indexes. Despite the boost, today's gains did not recover the losses financial markets have seen over past days. Investors remain concerned over slumping oil prices and slowing growth in China. On Wednesday, stocks dove to their lowest levels since May 2009, with UK, French, and Japanese shares falling more than 20% below their 2015 highs. ABC News has a report.
Just an hour after the markets opened, the numbers said it all. The already nervous investors were in for another wild ride.
Historically speaking, when January is down, the year is a down year.
Stocks have been tumbling since New Year's Day, with wholesale oil prices plunging, dropping to levels not seen in more than 10 years, meaning we're seeing some historically low gas prices, including gas for less than $1 a gallon in Michigan earlier this week. Great news for consumers.
Puts extra money in my pocket to spend on my family.
But not for energy companies and this woman who lost her job at an oil company this month.
I can't say I was overly shocked, only because of the climate. It's been this way for months.
And if prices continue to drop, the biggest fear in the markets right now is that energy companies will start to default on their debt. If they start defaulting on their debt, it could be something similar to our financial crisis, the Great Recession.
Another big concern? Volatility in markets overseas, especially China. The Asian giant's growth for the year was less than 7%. That's the lowest in 25 years.
If you have money in stocks, your best bet is to ride it out as opposed to take it out of the market, because the people who take their money out of the market when it's down are the people who lose.
And in sports, Israeli tennis player Dudi Sela advanced to the third round of the Australian Open after beating a Spanish opponent, Fernando Verdasco, in 4 sets. This is considered a significant achievement for the 30-year-old Sela because it is the first time in his career that he is able to beat Verdasco, who was previously ranked number 7 in the world. The first round, Verdasco beat his legendary Spanish compatriot, Rafael Nadal. And those were the latest reports. Join us again in 20 minutes.